Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the Charter School Marketplace podcast, and we are greatly honored to have Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey with us today. So rather than me talking, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us your background and your role and so on, please.
Well, thank you, Paul. I'm Mike Causey. I'm a native of Guilford County. I was born and raised on a farm in rural Guilford County where I still live today. And I have a background in civil engineering, construction, and most of my career was spent in the insurance business. So I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. I was military police, also played in the Army band. So I tell people I have a well-rounded military experience, served in the National Guard as well as the Army Reserve. So, and I've been insurance commissioner for the past 8 years, elected in 2016 and reelected in 2020, and now running for reelection in 2024.
Fantastic. So that's a lot to chew on. You've got quite a history. Well, and not only being in the insurance business, but also the fact that you were in construction.
Correct.
Development, which is a hotbed for liability. And
exactly.
Is that what got you into the insurance business when you saw the massive liability involved in job sites?
No, I was a field engineer. I'd been a surveyor and working on major textile projects for Klopman Mills, Burlington Industries, and finished a big job in South Carolina and decided to take a break and go back to college. And that's when I moved to Charlotte to study urban and environmental engineering. And it was while I was a student at UNC Charlotte that I was in the library studying one day, and Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, the largest life insurance company in America, was recruiting on campus. So these two men walking around in suits and ties, talking to students. They were posting ads that they had money to pay while you trained. So over time, I studied what insurance agents do and got interested in that and went through their recruiting program, and they ended up hiring me. So I made a career switch.
Well, it's worked out quite well and for the state as well. So being the charter school marketplace, schools are statutorily required to have certain limits of certain liability and coverage and so on. And I being that charter schools are not-for-profit boards that run the schools, I don't know if you've got statutory requirements for directors and officers insurance. If there's not, there probably should be, because that is if you wouldn't mind, just talk a bit, if you would, about D&O insurance and what that means. That's kind of big.
Well, most professions have some type of errors and omissions policy. I know as insurance agents, most companies require the agents to have that type of coverage. And even the state of North Carolina, for public employees, they have a commission that was set up by the legislature years, probably back in the 70s, and it's called the Public Officers and Employee Liability Insurance Commission. And that's in case a coach or a teacher gets sued or somebody gets hurt and there's a lawsuit. So that type of coverage is very important. And I don't know what the statutes are with regard to the charter schools.
Because those are district schools that's baked into the cake.
Right.
And I don't know that charters have requirements for D&O insurance. So I'm bringing this up because if any school does not have that for their board, they need to get that.
Well, that's correct. I mean, you don't want to have that liability out there just in case something does happen. So whether it is a requirement or not is certainly something that people should voluntarily look into and shop around and talk to your insurance agent about making sure that's covered.
So the insurance industry has gone through a dramatic change, healthcare, liability, and being that we're a coastal state, the premiums and some schools have been destroyed by storms, in fact. So as far as just what do you see? What is the shift going on in general and then related to education?
Well, when Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina in 2018, it devastated 23 southeastern counties. And the two schools that were hit the hardest was the University at Wilmington, UNCW, and then UNC Pembroke in Robinson County. But the state has a state property insurance fund that covers that type thing. And there was well over $100 million in claims paid out on that one campus. And what we learned after Florence was that most houses, most people that had homes had no flood insurance. It was less than 2% of the homeowners that actually had flood insurance. And out of all the property that the state of North Carolina owns, which is over 15,000 buildings, less than 77 buildings had any type of flood coverage. So what happened, you had a lot of properties with different schools, private schools, public schools, that had significant damage, but they had no flood insurance. And that was pretty tragic. So what we did at the Department of Insurance was launch a flood education initiative. So we worked with the realtors, insurance agents, architects, and engineers, and any of those folks could take the 4-hour flood class and get continuing education credits. And just by doing that simple thing of educating the public on the need for flood insurance, we increased the number of flood insurance policies by 25% over a 3-year period since, several years since Florence.
Fantastic. So with charter schools and school choice, I don't know, so many people even in the school world don't understand charters. So tell us, if you would, just a bit about your exposure and your support for school choice.
Well, I remember watching the legislature debate this. They had a lot of committee meetings about it, and of course, there's a lot of opposition from the public, from the public school groups. They're saying this is going to ruin public education. But if you look at it, I went through the public schools like a lot of folks in North Carolina,
which are not the schools that exist today.
That is a different world today than what existed, 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. And parents are very concerned. And I live in the southeast part of Guilford County. And for years, we've had a Christian academy out there. I'll just say the name, Vandalia Christian. And the people that graduated from that school were always at the top tier when it comes to getting accepted into colleges. And I remember, this is going back years ago, when the state of North Carolina was spending thousands of dollars. I don't even know what they're spending per student today, but I know
it's substantially higher.
that one academy, this was 30 or 40 years ago, they were, it was costing about $1,500 per student, and the quality of education was far superior to what people were getting elsewhere.
Charter schools, based on the last data I looked at, get roughly 70% of the funding that district schools get. Plus, and so again, and the other factors is the facilities are provided for districts. Charters have to run a business. And, and so money does not fix the problem. Running an efficient business and putting out a proper program is what the goal is.
And we also have a group, of course, the homeschoolers, and really it should be about parents having choices.
Yes.
And it's up to the parents. And what we see now is the government, trying to get involved with raising a child from the cradle to the grave. and really cutting the parents out of the decision making process. And I think that's what most parents I've talked with get upset about.
Well, it's parental choice, and also it's, homeschooling is a great option. It's all about choices. Homeschooling is an option. District schools, both of my kids graduated from Guilford County high schools,
Right.
and they got a phenomenal education, but they were both choice schools. So, and whether it's a magnet school or a district choice school or a private school or homeschool, competition breeds excellence.
Exactly. And that's what we need. We need more. We need to hold teachers and students accountable. And I've taught in the public schools for a couple of years. I've taught middle school and I've taught high school. And I see how difficult it is for teachers to do their job in today's environment. And this was years ago. This was back in the late 90s. And it's far more difficult today for teachers.
Oh, yeah. We're actually located. We're at Phoenix Academy today, having meetings.
Right.
So that's why we're kind of in our ad hoc studio here, at the school. But yeah, it's a different world that we live in, and running a proper business is important. And insurance is a key element to running a proper business. You have to have the right coverage and the right agent to take care of you.
And insurance keeps going up because, especially with these errors and omissions and some of these other types, these insurance companies depend on reinsurance, which is worldwide. And what you've seen in the reinsurance market is the premiums have gone up and up, especially since COVID.
Right.
And that's one of the factors that's driving. And I will talk a minute about insurance fraud, because there is a tremendous amount of insurance fraud, especially in health insurance. And I've been to these seminars with fraud experts, and they tell me that almost half of the claims that are filed for medical insurance are fraudulent.
Wow.
And then you have
no idea.
With regard to the homeowners, you have what I call these fraudulent roofing contractors. So you'll have people after every storm, whether it's a hailstorm, a tornado, hurricane, any type of storm, these companies will come in from out of state. They'll go door to door, and they'll just knock on the door and say, "Hey, I've noticed you've got a little roof damage. We can get you a free roof. Won't cost you anything." And most of them are scams looking to take people's money. So, we're asking people, if they see something like that, whether it's at a school or at a home or residence, to report it so it can be looked into.
So at charters, especially, so you've got the health insurance component, you've got the liability, you've got the D&O. There are a number of different insurance coverages you have to have. So what about insurance agents? Is there I've got a real estate broker's license, so I have to take CEUs every year and stay up with it. Is there any kind of vetting process for these insurance agents that schools need to be aware of?
Well, yes. And, we have some colleges that specialize with insurance. App State was the first school in North Carolina to have an actual insurance program. And now we have UNC Charlotte and East Carolina. But, number one, a convicted felon cannot hold an insurance license in North Carolina. Now, there can be an exception if a situation happened 40 years ago and somebody was a teenager and they made a mistake. They can go through an appeals process, and that if it passes all of the tests, sometimes that can have a waiver, an exception. But the insurance companies require most agents to be bonded, and you have fingerprints on file with the FBI. And so they're held accountable. They're held to a high standard, a fiduciary standard. And if an agent violates any of those standards, then it ends up many times being investigated, and they will lose their license if they violated state statute or some other criminal act that would impact their license.
So there are barriers to entry to filter out that element. So taking it to the next level, what should schools look for when they're interviewing an agent? Because again, you've got different carriers for different things, and some agents probably offer healthcare and liability and property and all that. So what are some of the things?
Well, one thing would be to check the financial standing of the insurance company. There are
the actual carrier, not the agent. So
correct.
You got to do both.
Really. You got to do both. And you want to make sure you're dealing with an agent that's been around a while, that has the experience. And if it's a well-known, financially sound insurance company, they're going to hire top-notch people. Right. They're not going to be licensed. They're not going to be working there unless they've been vetted and gone through a process. I think what people have to look for is to make sure you're not with some internet ad or a television ad or something like this that's offering something, and the agent may be from another country, or they may be operating out of Florida, and it could be a scam operation. But
so don't buy your insurance from Bangladesh.
Correct. and make sure if you deal with a local reputable firm, you'll be fine.
So so some people may be in the eastern part of the state, but they could still have an agent, say in High Point, be in the mountains and have an agent at the beach. It is nice to have a local representative, though, because I know in this school the issues that you had, it's nice to have a local person.
It is. Well, we have over 500,000 agents licensed in North Carolina, and the majority are out of state. They're brokers from other states that do business in North Carolina. So my view is to have a local agent that you can go visit with personally, or pick up the phone and call.
Keep it local.
Because that way, if something comes up, you've got somebody right there locally that can handle it for you, as opposed to, if they're in another state, or if they're in New York or California, you may be on hold for days just trying to find somebody.
Right. Well, I know you've got another engagement that you have to go to. So if there's anything else you'd like to say before we
But I'd say that the Department of Insurance has a website available to the public. It's ncdoi.gov.
And we'll put a link.
ncdoi.gov. And if anybody has an issue, if they've got a complaint about an insurance company, there's a little button on the homepage. You click that button. It takes about 40 seconds to fill it out. And send it to us. They can send me direct email. It's my name, mike.causey@ncdoi.gov. And if it's just a question about how many complaints has this company had, or how are they rated financially, we're happy to give those answers. And I know many times people have problems getting a claim settled with an insurance company, whether it's automobile accident or a claim on their house from storm damage. And we urge people to not fight that battle themselves, but to report it to us. And we have consumer people on the phones Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and that's all they do is help consumers. So, give us a call and let the Department of Insurance help if you do have a question.
That's fantastic information. I don't think very many people know that. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Well,
we appreciate what you do for this state, and we appreciate you fighting the fight, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Everybody, have a wonderful day.